I worked at Papa John's for a few years, starting in high school and continuing into college. I delivered pizzas and sometimes helped with cleaning because I worked night shifts. On a slow weekday, my shift was from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. By 10 p.m. we weren't getting any orders, so we started cleaning and preparing to close by 11 p.m. At 10:45 p.m. the store phone rang. My manager answered it, and I realized someone was placing an order. My shift ended in 15 minutes, but I still had to deliver the order, which annoyed me. I waited for the pizza to be ready and left just before 11 p.m. The address was about 10 minutes away. When I got there, I saw a long driveway leading into the trees, but no houses or lights at the end. I checked the map and saw a house was indeed there, just far down the driveway. I turned onto the driveway and put my headlights on. After the first part connected to the main road, it turned into a gravel path that was hard to follow because it was narrow and the trees were close to the sides. Eventually, the path opened up, and across a small field, I saw an old wooden house. It was too big to be a cabin, but felt like one in the middle of the woods. There wasn't a place to park, so I stopped on the gravel and got out. A few outdoor lights were on, but they were dim, and the surrounding woods were dark. I walked up to the door, wanting to get this done quickly because I felt uneasy. Just before I knocked, I heard leaves crunching behind me, near the gravel driveway I had just come from. I looked but couldn't see anything in the dark. I knocked on the door and waited, glancing back at my car. I wished I had left the keys inside to keep the headlights on. From the porch, I could barely see my car's reflectors. The rest was hidden in the dim light from the house. I heard footsteps inside, and then the door opened. An old man with short black hair and glazed-over eyes stood there. "I have a Papa John's pizza order for you," I said, holding out the box. He paused, then slowly took it, looking into my eyes the whole time. He set it down on a table, got his wallet out, and slowly counted some cash. Then, I heard leaves crunching again behind me. I looked over my shoulder toward my car but didn't see anything. The man grabbed my shoulder and said, "Here for you," handing me the cash. I took it and quickly looked back at my car but saw nothing. The man slammed the door shut behind me. Before leaving the porch, I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight, hurrying back to my car. I shone the light around but saw nothing. I got in, made a small U-turn, and drove away. I felt uneasy the whole drive back. After clocking out, I did a quick check around my car. Everything looked fine except for some scratches near the passenger door handle that I didn't remember being there before. I couldn't be sure, and even if I could, there wasn't much I could do. I think someone was out there in the woods, trying to get into my car without me knowing. Maybe it was all a setup. I can't say for sure, but if they had gotten in, they might have hidden in the back seat and waited for me. What would happen after that is best left unknown. I'm a truck driver for a local grocery store. I drive within a 50-mile radius, delivering groceries from the warehouse to various stores every day. My shifts aren't too long, so I get to go home and sleep in my own bed every night, unlike long-distance truckers. One day was pretty typical. I made my usual deliveries and reached my last stop around 9 p.m. It took about half an hour to unload, and then I was ready to head back to the warehouse. This was my longest drive, as the warehouse is on the edge of the city, far from everything else. About an hour into the drive and 15 minutes from the warehouse, I pulled into a gas station to fill up. I'd been running on empty for a while. As I started pumping diesel, I noticed a group of people standing by a pickup truck across the gas station. They kept looking at me and my truck. It felt strange, but I figured they were just waiting for me to leave so they could mess around. Once my truck was full, I got back in and drove off. The group got into their pickup and followed me closely. It was more than strange now. Over the next mile, as we got closer to the edge of the city, they swerved behind me, unable to keep a steady speed. I grabbed my phone and called the police to report their reckless driving. Being in a big semi, I didn't feel scared for myself, but I was worried about other drivers on the road. A couple of minutes later, they pulled up next to me, matching my speed. I saw a few guys looking at me, talking to each other. Suddenly, they sped up and slammed on the brakes right in front of me. I had to brake hard to avoid hitting them. Immediately, 4 of them jumped out and ran towards my truck, trying to open the doors. I quickly reversed to put some distance between us, then drove forward. My options were to drive off the road, which might topple my trailer, or ram through their pickup. I chose to ram through it. The guys ran off the road just before I hit their truck, and after 30 seconds I was far away from them. When I got to the warehouse, the police were already at the scene with the group's pickup on the side of the road. The 4 men were there, intoxicated and uncooperative. The officer said they wouldn't explain what they were doing. It was scary having 4 drunk and aggressive guys trying to break into my truck. Everything happened so fast, and it might not sound too bad, but if I hadn't acted quickly, it could have turned into something truly awful. There's no way to know what might have happened. I was driving home from a friend's house late one night. It was around 2 a.m., and I was really tired. The drive was long and boring, with a straight road that seemed to stretch on forever. For the first 20 minutes, I didn't see another car. It was just me, trying to keep my eyes open. Suddenly, my headlights picked up something on the road ahead. As I got closer, I saw it was a semi-truck parked right in the middle, blocking both lanes. I had to slow down and eventually stop. This part of the road was at least 30 minutes from town, with nothing around. The only reason someone would stop here was if there was an emergency. I looked to the right of the truck and thought there might be just enough room to squeeze by, but there was a steep hill. The other side had trees too close together to drive through. After a minute, I figured it had to be an emergency. My only option was to check it out. I got out of my car and walked up to the front of the truck. It was eerily quiet outside, like the night was completely still. When I got to the front, I saw a light on in the driver's cabin. I knocked on the door and called out, asking if they were okay. The window was too high for me to see through, and there was no response. I called out again, but it was silent. I felt uneasy. Looking down the road, I saw nothing but fog. I climbed up onto the truck steps to look inside. The cabin was a mess, like it had been in a crash. Stuff was scattered everywhere, but no one was inside. Then I saw the door on the other side was wide open. I stepped back down and started walking around the truck to check the open door. Suddenly I saw a man walking up the hill from the forest. He was tall with shoulder-length hair and looked very disheveled. His clothes were stained dark red, and his face was covered in dirt. "Hey man, are you okay?" I called out. He didn't look at me and kept walking up to the road. In the faint light from my headlights, I saw the dark stains were blood. I offered to help, but he ignored me until I mentioned calling 911. Then he stopped and stared at me with a threatening look. "I'm fine," he said in a deep voice. I backed off and watched as he climbed into the truck. As the truck started moving, I rushed back to my car and sped back to my friend's house. There, I called 911 and told them everything. The case never went anywhere. What happened on that road is still a mystery that terrifies me. The way the truck was stopped and the chaos inside the cabin made me think someone forced them to stop. Whatever happened after that, the man I saw probably wasn't the original driver. I dread to think what likely happened in the forest below the road.